1. We are live on Facebook. Hello, everyone out there. I'm Andrew Berman. Didn't know that already. And you are watching Lucido and Berman. My buddy Paul Lucido over there. He's connecting from home in California. And I'm here in New York. And we will take you through the knowledge. What is it? Knowledge is potential energy. From Jay Doran's 30 Days of Thought. If you're watching this for the first time, which you've seen a couple of us do these, a couple of these that we've done before, we take Jay Doran's 30 Days of Thought and we do a deep dive into it. We do like each section. Paul and I use this so we can become comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's a journey we started about a year ago. That's Paul, I don't know about you. It's helped me. It's helped me come out of my shell. It's helped me feel more comfortable about doing Facebook Lives. It's helped me be more comfortable about myself. What we do is we basically we read the book. Oh, George Duarte joined us. Hey, George. Thank you so much for joining us. So we read the book, 30 Days of Thought. I don't know, Paul, do you have it handy?
Yes, I do.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so.
There you go.
So we read that book. We write our notes on it, and then we either record a video and sometimes I do them on my phone, or sometimes we just go live on Facebook like this. Today's section is knowledge is potential energy. I'll read you the abstract, and then we're going to kick it off. Paul will start us off here. We are the knowledge, and according to how we choose to apply it, makes us the power. Knowledge is potential energy. Take it away, Paul.
Okay, thank you, Andrew, and I appreciate it. And hello, George Duarte. How are you, brother? Glad that you're joining us. So look, this I think might be our 30th episode today in total, number 10, I believe, for this year. So this is kind of an interesting perspective because we all have grown up with the ideology, the concept of knowledge is power. But Jay is technically challenging that adage, which is kind of interesting to me when he says knowledge is power, and he says it really isn't. And I think where he's coming from is the concept of knowledge is power versus knowledge is potential power or energy. And once we have that knowledge, once we are equipped with that, then we technically, through the execution of that knowledge, we are the power. And I think that's what he's really trying to get across. So it's to, he says here, we are knowledge, and according to how we choose to apply it, makes us essentially that power. Okay? So I kind of went through this a little bit, and I was trying to really get the idea. And one of the things that he brings into it, as Jay is so well adept at doing, is he brings in Newton's law. Now, Newton's laws of motion, if you guys know, is essentially the classical foundation, or the foundation, as one would say, to classical mechanics, Newtonian mechanics, so to speak. And there's actually 3 physical laws that basically describe the relationship between a body and the forces acting upon it, and then its motion to those forces, how it is reacting to those forces. So that's kind of Newton's law. Again, there are 3 main laws, and once again, it is the foundation to classical mechanics. Okay, so how does that all apply to this? Well, I think what it applies to is that at the end of the day, what overcomes the inertia, so to speak, us being at a state of rest, is the knowledge starts to flow in. And as the knowledge begins to flow in, it actually creates a force. That force in turn allows us to put that knowledge forth, to apply it in some way. So I was trying to find kind of an interesting way of how he might have been trying to connect Newtonian mechanics, classical mechanics, into his theory here. But these were some of the things that I wrote down that I think are kind of important. Knowledge grants us permission. Permission leads to decision, to an action. So Jay was kind of he's using kind of some interesting analogies. He's saying knowledge is the fuel, okay? Decisions are all the different levers that we pull in order to execute, to make that decision, so to speak, the brake, the stick shift, the throttle, how we might feather the gas. If you remember, we had a discussion before about that, talking about fuel essentially, and how we might, navigate change through different things and pulling different levers. When to apply the brakes, when to put, more pressure on the throttle, so to speak. But we must be willing to overcome our arrogance and of self before we can replace old thoughts. So one of the things I believe Andrew Jay was kind of getting into was, trying to shed some of the preconceived notions that we might have. As we always talk about through 30 Days of Thought, 30 Days of Thought is kind of an evolution of change. It's kind of a self-discovery. And through self-discovery, you begin to reveal more and more and more. And a lot of what you begin to reveal is that what you thought you knew yesterday is something completely different today. And sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it holds steadfast, but sometimes it's evolving. So I feel like that's kind of where he was going. Now, there's a lot we can dialogue about here, but I think that might be a good way to just kind of open it up again. Is knowledge really power, or is it really more of a potential power? And depending upon how we execute it and use it, does it really become true power for us? Andrew.
Oops, had myself on mute there. So as always, you just went actually, and you go so deep, and it's amazing how, and it's funny, like when I hear you talk about actually the chapter, I'm like, yes, I get it, and I really, this is why you start them off, because you actually pull the essence out of it, and I just I love it. It's because I am more like the practical. I am thinking of and I'm going to look at my notes here. I'm going to cheat. So knowledge. This is what I wrote. Knowledge is not power. In the same way that ideas are just ideas without action. Behind those ideas, if you don't do anything with those ideas, they're just ideas. And I have countless notebooks of just ideas that have never actually been put into place into action. There are countless, thoughts that I've had actually that have come here and said, "Hey, those are great things to do," and I've got the knowledge, but I haven't put them all into place. So that's to me actually what knowledge is power, and just kind of. Knowledge. Knowledge tells us whether we should be take action, or hold back. Or knowledge tells us actually, if it's the right time or if it's not the right time. And just kind of Alyssa said, depending on where you get that knowledge from, what's the source? Yeah, that's very, very true. But either way, wherever the knowledge comes from, because bad ideas or good ideas without action are just ideas. And so bad knowledge or good knowledge without any action is just dies on the vine by itself. Words in a book, if they're not read, if they're not applied, if they're not learned, what does it make a difference anyway? So that was my take. I think actually it's funny when we got this started. Paul said, "Hey, let's dialogue about this, talk about what you want to talk about." And I said, let's just go right to it, because that is our truth, right? If we dialogue and say, "Hey, listen, we do this," it's not a truth. Oh, we got KP joining us. KP has just been, man, he is a beast. It has been so amazing the amount of things that I've learned, about the industry and I thought I knew the industry, but the amount of things I've learned about the industry because of KP's ability to kind of break down such complicated things, so the common folk like us actually can understand it. Take actually the ideas from a guy like Gary Malice and take actually what he knows, his wealth of knowledge, and make it actually so us street folk can understand it is really, really phenomenal. So KP, thank you for your continued knowledge, leadership, and listen, we're taking action with your knowledge, because if you just put that knowledge out there and no one saw it and people didn't do anything with it, that potential energy dies, and knowledge is power. And then Hold on for a second. Oh yes. Oh my goodness. One of my favorite Culture Matters podcast. So everyone should soon listen to KP Paul and soon to be the Andrew Berman podcast on Culture Matters. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Culture Matters podcast. I'm a huge fan. The Paul Lucido, Culture Matters podcast was unbelievable. Every episode is just a gem. And it all went downhill from there. Now that I'm on it, but and there you go. What's up, Cassie? How you doing? Very cool. So yeah. So Paul, I don't know if you have any further commentary on it. I think we're pretty much lockstep in this. You added a lot more depth than I had to it, which as you always do.
Well, look, let me just say this, and I want to speak on two things. Number one is, to become the better version of yourself, you have to go through these exercises and you have to go through self-discovery. And once again, this book is all predicated on self-discovery. It doesn't matter what chapter. Like I said, this is our 30th episode of doing 30 Days of Thought, number 10 for this season. We call this season 2. We did 22 last year. But ultimately, where I'm going with this is that you have to be willing to constantly investigate the information, as we were talking about. I know somebody had said, where are you getting your information from? It's kind of an interesting thing because we were just dialoguing about some of that today. There is so much going on, for example, with the COVID-19, right? There's all kinds of information just piling in. It's coming in like, just literally, influx of information. You have to discern through all this stuff. You've got to read it. You've got to understand it. And hopefully you can have something that you can take away from that is valuable. Question is, how much of it is truly factual? How much of it is hyperbole? So, going back to the thing when you talked about KP, for example, KP's been doing a lot of his own independent pod. He does these videos late at night and he puts out some really good information. And I can tell you, he's one person that I can say does his homework. He won't just put information out there just for the sake of putting it out there. He will read and read and read, make sure he's pulled it all together, and then he helps put it back out there in a way that, like you said, is very palatable to the viewer. And that's one thing we're doing at PRMG. I mean, if you guys actually tune into what we've been doing, and I don't want to make this about a PRMG plug, but to be fair, that is something that we've really been involved with, making sure we put out good content, as do you, Andrew. I've been listening in as I work through some of your podcasts and, trying to ascertain all this information as it comes in. Today they were talking about forbearance and all kinds of different things. And, I was just trying to get a handle on really understanding different perspectives. But anyway, going back to the point of this particular chapter, knowledge is power. I still believe, Jay Doran, that knowledge is truly the power. It's the catalyst. It is the prime mover. And then through the decisions of whether to put that information out, to execute on that information is, something that we have to decide to do, based on the fact, on our confidence in that knowledge. That's another thing too. You got to be confident with the knowledge before you just start regurgitating it out there. So anyway, listen, I don't know what more I could really say to this. Again, this is about self-discovery. And this book helps you get there. It's a great book. You're going to see more of this. These are short little excerpts that we're doing, but we're trying to contribute out there. We're trying to create some dialogue with other people. If you guys are interested, you like what you see, be sure to follow Andrew and I. And, we're going to talk more. We've got quite a few chapters ahead of us, right, Andrew?
Yeah. And you just hit something there, and I can't get this. So knowledge. So maybe like knowledge is kind of like a bullet, like it's a bullet, and a knowledge like without actually a gun. I mean, it still has all the potential energy, has all the power, has the gunpowder. Everything is still in that bullet and has all the potential to be the explosive things. But really without a gun to hit with a hammer to hit actually that bullet is just it's almost useless. I mean, of course, you can take a hammer and beat up a bullet, and there are other ways to get it to explode. But to get it to do what it's supposed to do, you need a gun. You need actually that gun that's going to take that hammer to hit the bullet to make actually that bullet do what it's supposed to do. So that knowledge is that bullet. Just as one of an analogy that I just popped into my head.
No, it's an interesting.
So hold on for a sec.
Yeah, I think I can answer her question.
Alyssa just added.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if did you see the? I'll read it. I don't know if you see the whole thing on the side. So this is my second time tuning into these guys talking about this book that is a parroting of a classic Buddhist concept. I think you guys need to clarify what is this. Do you guys go through a chapter, a book, or podcast, or is it a different book? Or so it's just one book. It's basically our good buddy Jay Doran wrote this collection of thoughts, and this is what it is. I don't know if you, Paul, if you want to further clarify.
Sure, I'll make it very simple. So is it EJ? Is that what she goes by, EJ? Do I have that right?
Yeah, EJ. Yeah.
Okay, so EJ, look.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. The book is about self-discovery. These are thoughts, collective adages, phrases, different thoughts that Jay just kind of threw together over a course of time. They're written almost like adages and parables. And the idea behind it is it gets you contemplating. It gets you thinking about life in general. It gets you thinking about yourself. Yes, there is some Buddhist sort of Eastern philosophy that's wrapped into it, but there's other things wrapped into it too. There's physics wrapped into it. There's Newtonian mechanics are wrapped into it. That's what we kind of led off with today. Jay also reads a lot of Nietzsche. There's a lot that contributes to these various thoughts that he has. The idea, he puts those ideas out there for each individual to read the thoughts and then to have their own thought. The book actually becomes their book. It becomes something that brings out some of their deep in the basement. It helps you pull some of that stuff up. And some of the stuff is not very pleasant to talk about. That's why Andrew and I always say getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. So to be quite frank with you, the book is just designed to start a conversation, but it's really a conversation with yourself. And then what you do is you put a video together to kind of speak forth. So here's the rules. It's basically read to think, write to develop, listen to what is unsaid, and speak to let go, which is kind of what we're doing now. Those are the four, we'll call them the four core values, the four principles. But that's essentially what the book is designed to do. So that's what we've been doing. We committed to it. We're not going to stop. It's a good little diversion in one's day, just to take a moment and divert and then reconvene. Make sense?
Cool. Yeah, definitely. And so, listen, I've got a couple of chapters. I got a couple of chapters left. Then maybe we follow EJ's suggestion, and if she's made a suggestion on what else we should check out. So, that being said, Paul, where are we going from here? What's our next one that we're going to do?
All right, I'm going to just do the old point and shoot. You ready? Let's do this one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Attention deficit.
Come on, bring it on.
Okay, attention deficit. Here's the abstract. Although we cannot see inside his mind, it lights up and imagination is birthed like a newborn sun. Sun, S-U-N, not S-O-N. Attention deficit. There you go. All right. So, Andrew, until next week, buddy.
Wait, what was it again?
What's that?
Bad joke. What was it again? But attention deficit. That's just a bad joke. A little self-deprecating humor about my ADD. So, all right, cool.
All right,
attention deficit. That's the one we'll do for next week. Make it happen early next week. And Alyssa, just to answer your question, we do these at least once a week. So it would be great actually if we did these every day, but
hard to do that.
We only have yeah. So, and hold on for a second. Jenna just added. Jay just said you can take over. He quits. Give me an agenda for tomorrow. I'm looking for a job. That's great. All right.
Thanks, KP. Appreciate it. And okay, Alyssa, it's Alyssa. She just said it's Alyssa. I'll call you Alyssa next time, and I appreciate you being on this. Look, guys, we're looking to get people to ask good, intelligent questions. That's what we want. Just follow us at Lucido and Berman. You can go onto YouTube, and we got them all posted out there. We just did one where we actually had Jay Doran with us for the first time. So once in a while, Andrew and I are going to invite people, and we'll have three of us on the podcast. And again, we do it once a week. Just so everybody understands, because there's we just have too much going on right now, but we try to just cut a little time to where we could, like I said, think about something, a little off the beaten path. Okay.